The Haunting of Room 213. In a quaint college nestled in the rolling hills of New England, Eldridge Hall stood as a sentinel of the past. Built in the late 19th century, its architecture was a mix of Victorian elegance and Gothic foreboding, with ivy-covered walls and tall, narrow windows that seemed to watch every move of the students who lived within its ancient confines. Among the many rooms of Eldridge Hall, Room 213 held a reputation that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to speak of it. Jessica, a sophomore studying literature, had just transferred to the college. Excited about the new chapter in her life, she was assigned to Room 213, a room that had been vacant for several months. She was unaware of the room's dark history and its previous occupants' inexplicable experiences. On her first night, as she unpacked her belongings, Jessica felt a strange chill in the air, despite the heater being on. She shrugged it off, attributing it to the old building's drafts. As Jessica settled into bed, she heard faint whispers echoing through the room. At first, she thought it was the wind rustling through the trees outside, but the whispers grew louder and more distinct. She could make out fragmented sentences, as if someone was trying to communicate with her. The sound of footsteps pacing back and forth seemed to originate from within the walls. Jessica's heart raced, but she convinced herself it was just her imagination playing tricks on her. The disturbances continued nightly. Books would fall off shelves, and Jessica often felt an icy presence standing at the foot of her bed, watching her with unseen eyes. Determined to uncover the truth, she began researching the history of Eldridge Hall. She spent hours in the college archives, combing through old records and newspaper clippings. It was there that she stumbled upon the story of Eleanor, a brilliant but troubled young woman who had lived in Room 213 in the 1940s. Eleanor was a gifted pianist who had won numerous awards and scholarships. However, she was plagued by severe anxiety and depression. One stormy night, she vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a cryptic note that read, "I can't escape the darkness." Some believed Eleanor had taken her own life, while others suspected foul play. Her body was never found, and the case remained unsolved. Jessica was both fascinated and terrified by the story. She decided to set up a camera to capture any paranormal activity. She placed the camera on her desk, pointing it towards her bed, and pressed record. The next morning, she eagerly reviewed the footage. Her blood ran cold as she watched a shadowy figure appear at the foot of her bed, staring at her with hollow eyes. The figure stood there for several minutes before slowly fading away. Fearful for her safety, Jessica confided in her friend, Emily, who suggested spending the night in her room. Jessica agreed, hoping to find some peace. When she returned to Room 213 the next morning, she found the words, "Help me," scrawled on her mirror in what looked like blood. Jessica's resolve crumbled, and she moved out of the room that day. The legend of Eleanor's restless spirit continues to haunt Eldridge Hall. New students who occupy Room 213 report similar experiences, with some even claiming to have seen Eleanor's ghost. The room remains a chilling reminder of the college's dark past, and its secrets continue to elude those who seek to uncover them.
The Phantom Library. Middleton College, with its ivy-clad buildings and serene courtyards, was a place of intellectual pursuit and tradition. Among its many structures, the library stood out as a beacon of knowledge. Its shelves held countless volumes, from ancient manuscripts to modern texts, attracting students from all disciplines. However, beneath this facade of academic excellence lay a dark secret, the haunted archive in the library's basement. The archive was a place where old, rare, and often forgotten books were stored. It was a labyrinth of narrow aisles and towering shelves, dimly lit and perpetually cold. The eerie atmosphere was compounded by the legend of Mr. Whitaker, a librarian who had met a grisly end in the 1920s. According to the story, Mr. Whitaker had been a strict but beloved figure, known for his dedication to preserving the library's treasures. One stormy night, he caught a student attempting to steal a rare book. A struggle ensued, and Mr. Whitaker was bludgeoned to death with a heavy tome. His body was discovered the next morning, surrounded by scattered books and blood-stained pages. One evening, a group of friends, Ethan, Sarah, Jake, and Emily, decided to explore the archive after hearing the chilling tales. They convinced the night librarian to let them stay past closing, under the guise of needing extra study time. As the main library emptied and the clock struck midnight, the friends descended the narrow staircase to the archive. The air grew colder with each step, and an eerie silence enveloped them. Armed with flashlights, they wandered through the rows of dusty books. At first, they joked and laughed to mask their growing unease. But as they ventured deeper, the atmosphere shifted. Faint scratching sounds echoed from the walls, and the occasional whisper sent shivers down their spines. They dismissed the noises as the building settling, but their bravado waned. While examining an old book on the occult, Sarah felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. She spun around, her flashlight beam slicing through the darkness, but there was no one there. Her friend saw the fear in her eyes and knew she wasn't imagining things. The scratching grew louder, and the whispers turned into indistinct murmurs, as if multiple voices were speaking at once. The lights flickered, casting long, dancing shadows. Panic set in when they saw a ghostly figure in the distance. It was an old man, dressed in early 20th century attire, holding a lantern. His eyes were hollow, and his expression was one of sorrow and anger. The friends backed away, but the figure advanced slowly, the lantern casting an otherworldly glow. They turned and ran, but the staircase they had descended was now a wall of solid stone. Desperate, they pounded on the walls and screamed for help. The figure grew closer, its spectral presence oppressive. Just as all hope seemed lost, the wall dissolved, revealing the staircase. They bolted up the stairs and into the safety of the main library, the door slamming shut behind them. The next day, they reported the incident to Dr. Ashton, the head librarian. He listened intently and then revealed the truth about Mr. Whitaker's tragic fate. The archive, he explained, had been a place of dedication and passion for Mr. Whitaker, and his spirit was doomed to wander its aisles, seeking justice for his untimely death. Dr. Ashton performed a small ceremony in the archive, hoping to bring peace to the restless librarian. While the disturbances lessened, the archive remained a place of unease, with students and staff avoiding it after dark, fearing an encounter with the vengeful spirit of Mr. Whitaker. The Possessed Painting. Crestwood University, renowned for its fine arts program, was a haven for creativity and expression. The Fine Arts Building, with its high ceilings and expansive galleries, displayed an array of artwork from alumni and students. Among the collection was a portrait that drew both admiration and dread, the painting of Lila, created by Robert, a talented student from the 1950s. Robert and Lila's story was one of passion and tragedy. Lila had been Robert's muse, his lover, and his inspiration. Their love was intense but short-lived. Shortly after Robert completed the portrait, Lila died in a car accident. Devastated, Robert disappeared, leaving behind his masterpiece. The painting captured Lila's ethereal beauty and haunting gaze, which seemed to follow viewers as they moved past it. Students and faculty began to report strange occurrences around the painting. It was said that Lila's eyes would not only follow you but also change expression, sometimes reflecting deep sorrow, other times anger. On several occasions, people claimed to have seen tears streaming down her painted cheeks. Tom, a janitor at the Fine Arts Building, often worked late, cleaning the deserted galleries. One night, as he was mopping the floor, he heard soft sobbing. He followed the sound to the gallery where Lila's portrait hung. The room was empty, but the sobbing persisted. Tom approached the painting, and to his horror, he saw Lila's eyes filled with tears. He stepped back, his heart racing, but the sobbing grew louder. Suddenly, the gallery door slammed shut, trapping him inside. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. The sobbing turned into wailing, and Tom saw Lila's figure stepping out of the painting. She moved towards him, her eyes filled with sorrow and a touch of anger. Tom collapsed to the floor, unconscious. When he awoke, Tom found himself outside the building, the morning sun casting a warm glow. He had no memory of how he got there, but a note in his pocket read, "Find Robert." Determined to end the haunting, Tom began researching Robert's life. He discovered that Robert, heartbroken and unable to cope with Lila's death, had disappeared into obscurity. Rumors suggested he had been buried in an unmarked grave on campus. Tom shared his findings with a group of students who had also experienced strange occurrences around the painting. Together, they held a small ceremony at the suspected burial site, hoping to bring peace to Lila's spirit. They recited prayers, lit candles, and laid flowers on the grave. As they concluded the ceremony, a sense of calm washed over